Okay, hello everyone. So welcome to this special panel discussion hosted by the Raindance Film Club. So every month we bring the best of the Raindance Film Festival. And this month we're delighted to welcome Alexis Bruchon with his movie, The Woman with Leopard Shoes. Sorry, so The Woman with Leopard Shoes. So we're going to be talking mainly about low budget filmmaking and the process of making his film. And please, if you have any questions, write them down in the chat box, and then we will get to your questions within 20 minutes, roughly.
Okay, thank you very much. Hello.
Hello, hi, Alexis. So how are you?
Very fine, and quite busy because we are finishing our second feature film. In fact, The Woman with Leopard Shoes is the first of a trilogy about thriller. So this first film, The Woman with Leopard Shoes, was a film noir. The second film will be a fantastic thriller, sort of horror thriller. And the third one will be a paranoiac thriller. And there will be a link between the three. It's not a sequel or something else, but there will be a link between these three films. So we are almost finishing the shooting, and we are now in post production, and we are very, very happy with the results for the moment.
Well, okay, so you guys have been very productive during lockdown. So that was actually my first question. So how did the idea for the movie come about? Was it related to COVID and the fact you were in lockdown, or not at all? Is it something that you had before and you decided to do during this period of time?
Yes, it was a long time ago. In fact, I'm an illustrator. It's my do it for living, and in fact in England with a British agency and with artist partners, and so I'm an illustrator, and so I think about this project many years ago, and in fact the good thing with drawing is that you can make any images you want, because it's free, it's very easy, and if you have little skills in drawing, you can make the images you want. So I began to draw a comic book, making a comic book to bring to life these ideas and these stories. But in fact, I realized that I didn't really like comic books, in fact, and it was more a way to avoid my frustration to not make a movie, because movies are very expensive. You need a crew, you need funds, you need sets, etc., etc. And in fact, I realized that if you have a very specific idea and after a specific concept, you can make really a movie with nothing, really. So it's began with some very old idea I have, and one of them was inspired by the beginning of Eyes Wide Shut. You know, I like Shot and Kubrick, and I don't know if you remember the scene when Pollack and Cruz are in the bathroom with the escort girl, and she's drugged, etc. And I was quite young when I saw the movie, and I was fascinated by these images. This image, sorry, a sort of dirty situation. It's almost a rape by Pollack in a very fancy party. So it was the beginning of, it was just an image, and after I built a story about this very little situation. And so I was in my beginning of my 20s, maybe, and 5 or 6 years after that, I began to think about a story with a man and his boss and and the house and an expected situation. At the beginning, it was in the countryside, but with a car. And after a chase, it was a little bit complicated. And finally, I wrote another script. It was my first script, and I want to make it, but it's a little bit more expensive. So I go back to this old idea, and I focus on the room, in fact, and on the small situation, the small eyes wide shut situation. A man, it was a three man in the correct movies, but a man or multiple character in one room, and a big situation in a tiny space. So after that, when you have the concept, and if you can have the control of the concept, maybe you can build a story who costs nothing and which could be visual, I think.
Yeah, it's very visual. You have a great visual style, and your use of shots is very clever. So, did you give yourself a set of rules, like the fact that you can't cheat, like you can't escape your location, or was it something that you had to do eventually, or when you wrote the screenplay, did you have more locations? Because oftentimes screenplays tend to blow up, as you know, or was it?
It was very clear at the beginning. We don't have to go outside of the room. Of course, you have some temptations because it's very difficult, and frankly, it's Chinese casse-tête to sorry, I don't remember the word in English, but it's tricky, very tricky. You want to go out. This bloody door, I want to open it and film some scenes in the parties. But it was, I think, the great danger to make scenes in the living room. In fact, yeah. I planned at the beginning to have the final act in the living room with all the guests, etc. And in fact, at the beginning, all guests had to wear masks, and the same mask, but it was not very, for my part, not a very good idea. So I realized very quickly that the best solution was to strictly rest in the room.
Stick to your rules. Sorry. Yeah, so you had to stick to your rules, which is very interesting for actually all the listeners here, because they're all trying to make movies, I assume, and it's so tempting, as you said, to just break your own rules. Yes. And create one more character, two more locations, yes. And then before you know it, yes,
but in fact, lesson, because it was the very fun part of the project was to have limitations, and very strict limitations. I have to say, so the film went to 4 festivals for now, and it was I have a very good return. But some people are a little bit annoyed by the text messages, because it can be boring, and I totally understand that, because it could be boring to read some text messages. But in fact, it's in the DNA of the project, because it's about thriller, it's about tradition of film noir, but in the same time, it talks about our contemporary world. And now you are texting most of people are texting all the day. So yes, it's boring, but it's the way that we can build a story. So it was very interesting to play with that. But just it was for me my only fear on the project. It was the text messages. I hope it's not too bad, but. Finally, I was very stressed with that, but finally, I think it's a good solution. And I talked about limitations, and for me, it was the only way, and for me, a good way to go outside of the room with the text messages, with an abstract things. All the film is about the off-screen, and I totally love in film screens. Look at, for example, Jacques Tourneur, the bus effect, for example, in Cat People. It's very famous now, but it's just a sound, and Simone Simon. No, it's not Simone Simon, but the other actress, and after just a bus, and you are afraid or you are intrigued by the situation. And I think it's the same thing with shadows and with text messages.
Yeah, I agree. And also what you did with the soundtrack, and we really have the feeling there's a big party going on, which is great. So I had actually a question about the text messages, because in your story we're clearly in France, and we hear French actors speaking. I mean, we only hear their lines of dialogue, and we see their feet, right? But the text messages are all in English, and the letters are all in English. So was it on purpose? Was it because you had the international audience in mind, or was it just because it's meant to be an English story? What was the behind it?
It's a tricky question. Sorry. Yes, some people are a little bit not annoyed, but intrigued by this. So in fact, there is multiple reasons. I will try to be frank. We had the lockdown during the sound process. So I have at the beginning to record British or American voices to make the sound in English. But in fact, it reminds me, and it's not just to have a response, but I'm French, and sometimes when you see an American film, an Italian film, or a British film who takes place in France, you have some elements in French and some are in English. And I always thought it was very funny, because we experience that as a French spectator all the time. So sometimes you have a scene in Versailles, for example, and it's written in French, but every actor speaks English, and it's normal because it's an American film, for example. And so it's almost the same things. You have some elements. You know that you are in France, but you have English text, etc., for convenient uses. And it reminds me a lot. I'm a big fan of Giallo. You know, the Italian movie thrillers. And in the Giallos, several Giallos takes place in London, for example. There's a strange vice of Mrs. Ward, of the woman in leopard skin, with leopard skin. So you have, but some parts of the film are made in Cinecittà or in Italy.
Yeah.
So you have some Italian streets with British context, and it's sort of little the image like that.
A quirk of the movie. Yeah, no, that was interesting.
Yes.
I had to ask you the question, obviously. So yeah, so have you seen a movie called See No Evil by starring Mia Farrow? Because your movie, in a movie, I was wondering if it was you had been influenced by it, because you decided to show mainly, well, hands, but also shoes. And were you? Have you seen a movie?
Yes,
or
of course.
Yeah,
I love See No Evil.
Yeah.
I'm very happy that we talk about See No Evil. Yes, it's obviously. So my biggest fear was to make an homage or a pastiche, because it's not. It's great. There are some very good pastiche or images, but it was frankly my biggest fear. But of course, you have some influences, and the Fleischer's movie See No Evil is one of them, and I was totally thrilled when I saw it by the way of build characters and evil character with only a pair of Santiago
boots. A pair of boots, which was amazing, very striking. It stuck with me. So when I saw the shoes are leopard shoes in your in your film, I was like, okay, maybe he's in the film. So
yes.
But were you tempted to actually, once you had your actors, because you had actors, yes, right? You had at least their feet. So were you tempted actually to show their faces or not really? Because you never, yeah.
Because it was no professional actors. It was part of the concept. And because I also like movies without real actor, professional actor, like Bresson's film, for example, A Prisoner Has Escaped. I know I have the title in French, but A Prisoner Has Escaped. I think it's the same thing in English. Yeah. And it was with non-professional actors. But the most important for me was, like Fletcher movie, to build characters only with the clothes, the attitudes, and the silhouettes. Because I don't know if there is the same dicton proverb in English, but we say that the clothes don't make the monk. But I think the clothes make the monk, because clothes talked about you, about your habits, your tastes, etc., your age maybe, etc., etc., etc. So, for example, for Boyer's character, he has very big shoes. It's a classic paraboot shoes. It's a Scandinavian style shoes, and it looks like a sort of lion, because you have some sort of teeth on the bottom of the shoe. So it was a very evil shoe. You know, so it was very practical to me. So Boyer will have these paraboots because it's perfect. It's incarnation of his character, and of course the leopard shoes are a little bit for femme fatale.
Yeah, that's the film noir. It's very noirish. Yeah, it was the right vibe for the shoes. So going back to your crew, so I noticed that you actually show up in a lot of the credits, right? You edited the film, you DP'd the movie, directed it, obviously wrote it, produced it. So who else was joined you to make the movie? Was it difficult to find someone else, or was it a choice to just to do it by yourself for the most part? How big was your crew, or small was your crew? Small, yeah.
Well, in fact, I know it will sound pretentious, but it's absolutely not. The project was think to be a sort of school. Because I have never shot any movie before, not even a short film. I never made a soundtrack or sound mixing, etc., or sound editing. So it was for me a sort of school. And the idea was to know, at the beginning, I talked with some professional, director of photography, etc., etc. But yes, I think the response will be more clear like that. At the beginning, yes, I talked with other people, but most of the people were in Paris. So I go to Paris, etc., and they start to say, yes, we have to take an apartment in the 16th arrondissement of Paris, in a chic quartier, etc., because it's a fancy party, and after we have to take some big lamps, etc., etc., and it costs money. And Paris is not is not made for it's made for a certain type of shooting, because it's very difficult to shoot in city in for example in an Haussmannian apartment. And it's a big difference with British cinema. British cinema are made in the countryside. For example, if you see the Bray Studio for the Hammer or the very famous Pinewood, it's all in with big space. And so it was the same concept to bring this concept of countryside shooting to a very small shooting. So I go back to Auvergne in Thiers, and I began to stalk my parents to shoot a film in their living room because they have the space to build a set. So they are very we talk. There is no problem with my parents. And so we build the set, etc. With I don't think I have responded of your question. No.
No, you did. You actually did. You answered a lot of questions. No, that's actually perfect, because I was about to ask you about the location, where you found it, and I mean, even Truffaut made one of his films at his parents. So there you go. You're in good company. Truffaut. He made a movie.
Yes, exactly.
So it was, I don't know, one of his early films. He had no money, as we know, and he had to make it on the countryside somewhere at his parents. So it's very interesting. So you just I
have just a little story with Truffaut, sorry, because in fact Truffaut shot a film called Pocket Money in my hometown,
that one.
In Thiers. And
I had no idea it was in the same region. Okay.
And in fact, he has planned to sleep in my grandparents' house.
Wow!
And if you see in the film, the beginning of the film has been shot in my grandma's house. And in fact, he had lunch every day in my grandparents' house. So we shot it with in the place where Truffaut were in the 70s. So it's a very and my aunt plays in the film, and she plays the little girl with the fishy dress at the beginning and the end. So it's my aunt, in fact.
My God! So wow, that's uncanny. That's so weird, guys. It was completely. I'm just talking to the listeners. That wasn't planned. That's a really bizarre.
Yes.
And it's just so it shows it's a small world.
Yes, very small. Yes.
Because I had no idea that you started moving in your in your small town of all places. Wow.
But it's true. It's true story.
So did it actually inspire you to become a filmmaker, like consciously or unconsciously, or was it? Like, I mean, there's a clear connection. So
yes, because it's a sort of little. It's our film as a Thiernois. It's of course we know this film, but yes, I like very much Truffaut, but it was not the déclic for.
It's trigger that made it happen. Well, that's great. Wow. That's
So to respond to your question, yes, there is no professional crew. It was my brother Paul Bruchon. In fact, I have to employ a real professional actor, but it was difficult. I didn't find the right person. And one day, my brother said, just say, if you want, I can try. And in fact, he was very, very good, and he remind me Melville's character, like the samurai, for example.
Yeah.
And because he's very strict, he has a sort of elegance, and it was absolutely perfect. And he's very friendly. Well, it's my brother, but so I know he's friendly. But on the screen, he was really a friendly character. And so we have my brother, my best friend, Pauline Morel, who was in charge of all the assistants, etc., and clothes for the film. And I have the two friends of mine, but just for 1 week, and a professional gaffer. It was the only professional on the set. But he has, of course, professional reflex. and to make to put lights, etc. everywhere. So and I was very a little bit mad, sorry, with that, because I wanted to make it very simple with just 1 or 2 or 3 lamps, IKEA lamps, or you know, the sort of thing, but very to be the most simple as we can. And for example, Boyer, the villain, is played most part by me, and I was totally alone. So I had no crew to film myself because we were in lockdown. So I have to put the camera, go it at the back of the room, make Boyer with with the big cigarette, and after go back to the camera and see the results, etc. So it was very minimalist, and at the end it was lockdown, so I finished the film. Yes, in fact, with my brother and me and Pauline, we were the 3 people allowed to meet each other because we live in very close. So that's all.
So how many days do you need to make a film? So
it's difficult to, yeah, no, it's not difficult to say, but 3 weeks, in fact.
Okay.
But in fact, I had to reshoot parts of the film because I was not happy with the montage, with the first editing. And because the story is quite difficult, the plot is complex, and it had to be very clear, and it was not the case at the beginning. So I have to reshoot some things and make some close-up, etc. So, but yes, 3 weeks.
So 2 weeks of principal photography and then 1 week of pickup shots.
Exactly.
Yeah. And what about the editing process? How long was it?
The editing project, I never make anything before. It was a total discovery. So I had to buy a computer to make it, because I planned to make it just on the laptop, but no, it was not a very good thing to do. And so I discovered all the way to do it, but not with technical tools, but with films. When you see films, if you focus it on the montage, on editing, you begin to learn some things, and you know, for example, the Kuleshov effect. You see one thing and a character and another thing and the same character, and there's 2 different feelings. So I use that a lot, because it's the joy of no budget film. You have to be you have to create some tricks.
Creative.
It was convenient, but yes, in fact, so to respond to your question, it was the editing, I think, in very long, 4 weeks, 4 months. 4 months, yes.
Yeah, which is part of the course. Yeah, so it seems fairly normal. So did you shoot the movie in black and white, or did you?
Yes.
Oh wow, you were brave. So there was
yes. No
you
color.
had no doubt.
No color.
Okay. That's because a lot of us tend to shoot in colors, and then just oh wow, that's so interesting. And which camera did you use?
Which what?
Camera.
Which camera? At the beginning, we had to plan to shoot it with a proper camera, with DaVinci. Sorry, Blackmagic is the editing.
Yeah, that's more.
Sorry.
Production, yeah.
With the Blackmagic, which is a very good camera, but it was not the right things for the film. And in fact, to have to high quality was not a good thing, in fact, for the film. And so I test some camera, etc. And it fell in fact the Canon 5D and the Fuji X-T1 for this X-T2, sorry, were much better, because the quality, it's less quality, but you have a sort of sort of grain, in fact,
Yeah.
that me the 16 millimeters, for example.
Yeah.
Because at the beginning, I wanted to shoot it in film because it was a film noir, etc. But I have no the skills. It's expensive, and I think it was not shooting in digital was a good thing because it's a contemporary film for me. And to shoot sort of classical film noir touch film with a very modern contemporary objects material, I think it's quite interesting. So yes, it's just camera 5D and the Fuji. In fact, I shot the first part of the film with the 5D and the other part with the Fuji because I would it's not the same exactly the same image, and I had I wanted to have some two distinct images. And during the shooting, we shot it with only one camera. We tried it with two camera, but no, I definitely, and the second film was film with only one camera, and I think it's for me it's better with one camera.
I think that's actually an interesting question because I'm sure a lot of listeners here are also asking themselves, okay, should I shoot with one camera or two? So for you, what's the main challenge when you're shooting with two cameras? Why, what was it possibly in a way of making the movie you wanted to make?
The two camera is very convenient if in fact it's depend of the type of the film. You know, for example, Kurosawa, he always worked with three camera. In Hell of Heaven, sorry, I don't Entre Ciel et Enfer, between Hell of Heaven, I think.
I think it's the same title, yeah, possibly.
You know, you have this very rich man in his villa and the serial killer in okay. Yeah. So sorry. So the film was shot with three cameras, but because the concept of the film is built to be shot in three cameras. You have David Fincher, for example, who shot with 4 or 5 cameras, sometimes 6 cameras, because he will add some shots to have some bizarre, strange traveling, etc., because it's his style. And I think for this film, the good solution was one camera because you have to stay focused on the main character's mind. So you are with the character, so you are one character. And I think when you shoot with one camera, you are more able to capture the exact idea, because you have no choice. You have to decide before the shot to see and to show to the audience one particular thing. So if my character get up, for example, you have to get up in a very specific way, and you have to show this the very specific way. If you have two characters, you have two possibilities, but maybe one good and one wrong. So if you are only one, it's once again, it's all about limitations. If you have one way to do it, you will think about it more deeply. And after, I speak for myself, you maybe have better results. But everyone is different, and every film are different.
Absolutely. So I have a few questions popping up. All right. So the first one is about your pre-planning. Yeah, very important pre-planning process. So did you storyboard? Did you make a short list? So what was your process?
So the process is very simple. I do it done it again with the second one. So I'm an illustrator, so for me it's more natural to draw it. So in fact, I have made a sort of plan with all my my scenes, all the articulations, etc. After I write the script. And I write it, and I never read it again. In fact, it's just for me a process to build the storyboard. So I make the script, and after he go to the trash. I never read it again after that. After that, I draw very specifically the. Sorry, I don't have the storyboard. Maybe I have a second storyboard like that. So you have. It's like a comic book. So the idea is to draw very carefully. So I take time to do it very clearly with the details, with the lights, with the character, etc. I make my numbers, for example. So you have, L. So it's L105. It's from the second movie. Yeah. Oops. Yeah. So you have the expression and very caricatural because you have to see if the character is scared or sad or annoyed, etc. So I drew it a long time, and after, in fact, during the food shooting, I don't look at my storyboard. I have it in mind, and in fact, I have nothing, just my ideas, my souvenirs of the storyboard and the script, and after that, I build all my story. But because it's a good thing to have some improvisations during the shooting. And it's not good, I think, for me, to strictly shoot everything you draw, because you can have some great idea, or your brother can have some great idea with the acting, etc. And just to finish with that, maybe because it was my first feature, and because it's a no-budget film, and it's a one-place movie. I shot it with angle, so all the sequences of the shoot in one angle, and after another, and another. And after you have some mistakes, and you turn around the four angles, and normally you have your shooting.
Great. Okay, so that was very interesting. Thank you. So now we know more about your process. So I have another question about your main inspiration for the film. You talked about Melville, which first crossed my mind when we see driving. the driving scenes. Yeah. So what else? Yeah. Was it your main inspiration, number one, or was your number one kind of source of inspiration?
If I had a number one inspiration, it's maybe it's The Haunting by Robert Wise. It's one of my favorite movies, and I always been thrilled by the use of the off-screen, especially when Eleanor is in the bedroom and she sees the door, and you have just this shot of the handle and the door, and just a piece of wood and some light, and he built a real tense, a real suspense and terror scene with almost nothing. And I think it's the most beautiful definition for me of cinema. It's just some piece of wood, handle, some lights, and an actress, and you have a real moment of cinema. But yes, you have seen no evil. Frankly, you have film noir. Like film noir is difficult because you have a lot of film noir. But Phantom Lady is one of my favorites. There is a film, Lady from the Lake. I think it's in English, La Dame du Lac, with Robert Montgomery. It was shot in just in one first person camera, so it's a very strange film noir. You have Murder My Sweet, for example, and I think one of my favorites, The Killers by Siodmak. I'm a big fan of Robert Siodmak. And I was very inspired by the director of photography, a real passion for the DP of this period, John Alton, for example, James Wong Howe, for example, Russell Metty, etc., etc. So yes, but I think the number one is The Hunting by Wise.
Great. Okay, so I have one more actually tying into this idea of film noir. someone had a question about lighting, so I'm just
Yes.
reading the question. Okay, okay, lighting. How did you make it work on your budget, or as you said, no budget? What were the main challenges for you as a DP? And
it's for me, it's all about light. Just a little, the 5D, for example, it's a camera, but it's a very good camera, but come on, it's a cheap material, and it's not for cinema, it's for photography, it's etc. etc. And the Fuji is the same thing. And you can have very shitty images with this camera if you don't have the right lights and the light use the right use of light. So lighting was it was the most important thing, because the story, with light you tell a story. So it's very simple in the film. For example, you have it's in black and white, so light it's even more important. And you have two light source. You have the window and you have the door. And so you have to light all the scenes, and the spectator have to understand the space through the light, because you are in shadow. So you have to make certain light with the window, and people are outside, so the light have to be danger. It's the same thing with the door. And in fact, in this particular case with my film, the light is the only suspense tool I had, because light is a source of danger, because it's where the people are, and shadow is a secure place. And most of the time it's the opposite. Light is life, it's the secure, etc., and shadow is the gothic, it's the monsters, the ghosts, etc. So it's totally different. When he's under the bed, is in shadow and is insecure. But when he go to the window, for example, is light a lot, and it's danger. So just to finish, I worked it very simply with only three lamps. It's for the lampe de chantier. Sorry, it's practical. Sorry, it's IKEA lamps, for example. You can buy it everywhere. It's absolutely no professional equipment. But I bought some very high lights. And after that, without filters, there are no filters, just a little bit of cinefoil, but that's all to have some frames to frame the light. But after that, I put it on a specific way, and you have a very geometrical use of the space. So of light, sorry. So you build a space just with light.
Well, that's very crafty, because how did you learn lighting? Because you didn't go to film school, and how did you learn about lighting? Because it's really well lit. You really did a great job creating a film vibe. So how did you learn about lighting?
Frankly, with two things, with drawing, of course. I teach myself to draw. I was not in an illustration school neither.
Yeah.
So to seeing things, and most important thing in seeing film, you see film and so you see light. I talked about John Alton, for example. John Alton had a very specific use of light. And if you see, so for example, I talked about Phantom Lady, you will have a very beautiful street scene in night with legs and shoes, and it builds all the tensions with the light, and it's I think that's why I like this old movie, classical movie. It was more simple because today's lighting is very sophisticated, but for me, but a little bit too sophisticated because you have green, you have blue, and after you have shadow
VFX.
here, and after, yes, and you have and after you have post production, and it looks like a crumble sometimes. So sorry to say that, but it's maybe it's a little bit pretentious to say that, but it's as a spectator, not as a director, but as a simple spectator. Sometimes it's a little bit too much. So in fact, simplicity for me is the best things. You have 2-3 lamps, and after that you see it, and you build it. But at the beginning, the start, you have to see a lot of films and see a lot of paintings. Paintings are very Wright of Derby, for example, is a British painter, very beautiful British painter. It was very inspiring for me. De la Tour, it's the same thing in France. Sees the classical painters, for example, is a good school for me.
Yeah, obviously it's a great background to have. So I have one more question, which is not related to lighting.
Yes.
So if money was no object, what changes would have you made in the process of making the film? So it's a vast question. Basically, would it be a different? So I guess if I was to reframe the question, it could be if money was no object, would you make the same content in the movie, or would you open up the movie? What would be different? Let's assume you had a few $1 million, a couple of $1 million, let's say, to do it, or euros or pounds, your choice of currency. So what would you do with your current, actual concept?
Tough question. As a concept, yes, I have my $1 million film in mind, no problem. But in fact, if I had 1 million or 10 or
let's say $1 million for this specific concept, what would you do differently? Would you open up the space? Would you have professional actors? What would you do that would be different?
Sorry to be the monk, but it's depend of the story. In fact, it's all in it. If I want to make a science fiction film, for example, yes, there is no reason to not open it. But in fact, it's sorry, I said because I have a script, a story which is finished, which is a science fiction film, and it's also in space, in sort of spaceship. But okay, but in the script, you never see the outside of the spaceship. You are always in the inside, but you never will see outside. So it's imitation. It's I think it will cost $1 million, but it's once again a limitation. But to be frank, if I had 1 million, yes, I wanted to, for example, to work on texture and with film, for example. I like very much film. I think I like, but I like very much digital. I think it's absolutely wonderful. You have some wonderful film shot in digital, but yes, film has this sort of.
I agree. At times, digital can be too crisp, and
yes,
you
exactly.
look at all films that.
Yes, for example, Douglas Sirk's film, it's impossible to make it in digital. For me, it's made for film. So I think it's one of the things I would like to say. Technical, I like very much, for example, the travelings and the cranes. So yes, with 1 million,
you could get a
can
choice.
do it. and sets, because I think it's very important to have sets, and of course very famous actors. No, it's not my goal for the moment, but you know, one of my I'm a huge fan, a groupie of Roger Corman, and frankly, it's a real model for me.
Of course, yeah.
Because you can make things and all his career. Look at his Poe adaptations. It's absolutely wonderful. But if you see, for example, Christopher Nolan, he starts with very few, with some pennies, and now he makes very big films. But if you see it, it's a very simple way and very not amateur, but it's very craft. And I like this way of making a film.
Yeah, gritty British filmmaking. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I think you mentioned as well that you've actually already shot your second film. So, and you are in the process of crowdfunding. Is it for your post-production or?
Yes.
Yeah. What's your how does it work for you? So, are you crowdfunding for your editing or post-production or festival release?
We are editing. The first film was it cost 3,000 euros. The woman with Leopard Shoes, and we will not with no crowdfunding or everything, with just pocket money and just yes to find it. But this time we had a professional actor, Brazilian actor, very good, and we have to pay him. It's normal. So the crowdfunding is made to pay him. And Pauline Morel, who worked on the first film, done a terrific job on this second film. So it's my closest friend, but I think it's normal to be paid for his.
Of course, yeah.
And of course, it will be able for us to pay some festivals, for example, like Raindance, of course, and to sorry, I don't have the the right word in English, but to amortir ou rembourser. Sorry.
Refund, yeah. To pay back.
Refund.
To pay back. Contact payback, yeah.
Okay, payback some, so the sets and the materials, the equipment. So it will be to finish and to pay back everyone on the film. So it's almost finished. We just have some days of shootings, and after the editing, I will make the music and the music editing, etc. It's not direct. Yes, the woman with Leopard Shoes, and this one was not made with direct sound. So I have to to make the sound, so record with a tiny microphone all the sounds that you heard in the film, and after editing it, because I think it's very, very important to when you have no money to no record the sound. You build the sound with a micro, and after in post-production, I think it's a much better way, because you will have a very clear sound, and after you can build narratively the sound as a narrative element. I think it's very important. So I will have to record all the things.
That's a great piece of advice and very helpful for everyone. And it ties into my last question, which was, do you have a final tip for the audience?
Yes, it could be that, and to feel. Sorry, it's like a guru, but to feel the things. In fact, because filmmaking is a very mathematical, pragmatic things to do. But there is a part of magic and part of feeling, and if you feel scene, shooting, concept, it will be okay. There is no problem. If you don't feel it, well, you have to follow your instinct. In fact, I think it's for me it was my most important thing on this two films.
Okay, thank you, Alexis. So
thank you very much.
So the Woman with Leopard Shoes will be available until midnight on the Raindance player at cinema.raindance.org. And this panel discussion will also be available from tomorrow. So make sure to share it with anyone who could be interested. And we will be, the Raindance Film Club will be back next month with a brilliant dance movie called Uprooted. So stay tuned for more details. So that was it for tonight. So thank you so much, Alexis.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much
for your next film and your campaign, and best of luck for you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bye.